On a cozy summer evening in July, in a charming town called Lac-Mégantic in Quebec, Canada, something special is happening. Even though it's already past midnight by an hour, the lively atmosphere at the local music cafe hasn't dimmed. This place is just one of the many beloved gathering spots where both residents and visitors come together to relax, enjoy music, and exchange tales. In this close-knit community, where the population is small, everyone knows each other's names. Suddenly, the quiet chatter at the bar is disrupted by the harsh sound of squealing train wheels. Freight trains are a daily sight. Their tracks just a short distance from the cafe, but something sounds different this time. Then, like a lightning bolt, 5 locomotives zoom past at an incredible speed, followed by a chain of 72 oil-filled tank cars screeching and clashing against each other. The ground quivers under a mighty explosion, and a wave of heat hits the cafe. The railway has been the lifeblood of the town for nearly 130 years, connecting it to the wider world. But on this fateful night, it only brings tragedy and destruction. Just an hour before midnight on July 5, 2013, a mammoth train carrying over 2 million gallons of crude oil pulls into the Nantes freight station. The train, stretching 4,700 feet long and loaded with 5 locomotives, a buffer car, a remote control car, and 72 oil tank cars, was journeying from Newtown, North Dakota to the Irving Oil Refinery in St. John, New Brunswick. 2 Canadian towns, Nantes and Lac-Mégantic, lay along its route. Tom Harding, an experienced engineer, was operating this massive train. When he reached Nantes, Harding parked the train on the main line for the next operator to take over the following day. Although alone on the train, he meticulously followed the parking procedure. After applying the air brake system, he set the hand brakes on all 5 locomotives, the buffer car, and the first car. To ensure everything was secure, he even conducted a brake test. The train's brakes were working properly, and the engineer, Harding, had reported an engine problem and smoke coming from the front locomotive to the rail traffic control in the United States. About 10 minutes later, the situation became clearer but unexpected. The front locomotive was kept running to maintain air pressure in the brakes. Harding then contacted the local rail traffic controller, Richard Labrie, who confirmed that the train was secure and left for a nearby hotel. At that moment, Harding didn't realize how serious the engine problem was. Shortly after he left, witnesses saw sparks and flames coming from the train. The fire department received an emergency call at 11:50 p.m. about a burning locomotive at the freight station. Firefighters arrived quickly and started putting out the fire. At 11:59 p.m., Labrie called Harding and asked if the train had caught fire. Harding confirmed it and asked if someone was taking care of it. Labrie assured him that firefighters were there and had extinguished the fire. Harding was satisfied with this information and asked if he needed to go there, but Labrie firmly said no. Labrie mentioned that he would assess the damage and provide updates. Harding requested a callback, and the conversation ended. At 12:13 a.m., 2 employees from the Montreal Main and Atlantic Railway, MMA, arrived and took control of the train. The MMA employees informed the firefighters that the train was safe, and everyone left the scene after the fire was put out. A potential disaster was avoided. However, the relief didn't last long. Around 1 a.m., as one of the firefighters was heading home, he stopped at a railway crossing near the passenger station. To his surprise, he saw the same train that had been rescued from the fire minutes ago passing the crossing at a high speed without headlights or sounding the horn. It was like a ghost train passing by. The train continued for 11 miles from Manon to Laes until it reached the small town of Lac-Mégantic around 1:15 a.m. Despite the speed limit being 10 miles per hour due to a sharp curve, the train approached at a speed over 60 miles per hour. Such excessive speed, 6 times the allowed limit, inevitably caused the train to derail. And that's exactly what happened. While the 5 locomotives and a remote control car managed to navigate the curve, the buffer car couldn't handle the force and derailed, dragging everything along with it. The crash of derailed cars caused a series of massive explosions, ripping through downtown Lac-Mégantic. The remaining 72 tank cars filled with crude oil contributed to the destruction. Closest to the blast was the Music Cafe, where only a few guests miraculously survived as everything within a 1,000-yard radius was destroyed. Giant orange fireballs illuminated the night sky, rising hundreds of feet in the air. Unfortunately, this initial explosion was just the beginning of a devastating 2-day disaster. Most of the derailed tanks ruptured during the collision, resulting in oil leakage. Over 1.5 million gallons of oil were ignited, causing the flames to spread throughout the streets of Lac-Mégantic. The blaze consumed everything in its path, reaching as far as the spilled oil extended. At 1:47 a.m., train operator Harding, who was evacuated from his hotel in Lac-Mégantic, called Richard Labrie, the traffic controller on duty, reporting that the entire area, from the church to the metro, from the river to the railway tracks, was engulfed in 200-foot-high flames. The scope of the disaster caught residents off guard. Apocalyptic scenes unfolded as people fled their homes, running through smoke and flames, desperate to save their lives. Some resorted to jumping from upper floors to escape the encroaching inferno. Around 150 firefighters were dispatched to the scene, but it took them nearly a full day to reach the heart of the fire due to the ongoing oil leakage from the derailed tanks. At one point, a specialized fire retardant foam was brought in from a nearby oil refinery to assist in extinguishing the flames. Finally, in the late hours of Sunday, July 7th, they succeeded. Expecting a large number of injuries, hospital staff prepared for an influx of patients, but only one resident arrived seeking treatment for second-degree burns during the 2 days of the fire. The intensity of the disaster left no room for survivors as they either managed to escape the fire or tragically perished. In the end, 47 lives were claimed by the explosion and the ensuing blaze. The victims' bodies were so severely burned that DNA samples had to be used for identification. Additionally, 5 bodies were never recovered, presumably vaporized by the force of the explosion. The devastation left almost half of Lac-Mégantic's downtown area in ruins, with remaining houses requiring demolition due to oil contamination. As a result, 1,000 people were left homeless, and another 1,000 had to vacate their residences due to toxic fumes. The environmental impact was severe as well, with 26,000 gallons of oil leaking into the Chaldeer River and nearby lake. In an instant, a tranquil and picturesque town had transformed into a raging inferno. During this tragic event, the train operator, Tom Harding, had no idea that his train was responsible for the catastrophe unfolding. Initially, he dismissed concerns and believed the train was secure. However, an hour later, Richard Labrie made a shocking discovery. A local taxi dispatcher informed Labrie that Harding's train had derailed and exploded, leaving Labrie in disbelief. The confirmation came at 2:30 a.m. that the fuel train had rolled away. As the truth sank in, Labrie informed Harding that it was his train that had gone off track and caused the town to catch fire. Harding was taken aback and couldn't understand how things had gone so wrong, as he was confident that everything was in order when he left. The weight of the revelation hit him hard, leaving him stunned. It was revealed that the train had indeed rolled away, and Labrie questioned Harding about the number of brakes applied to secure the train. Harding replied that he had used 7 brakes. To understand the sequence of events, we need to delve into the details of that fateful night. Following the schedule, the tanker train operated by the Montreal Main and Atlantic Railway arrived at the passenger station. Harding parked the train and secured it by activating the air brake system, which locked all the wheels. Additionally, he applied hand brakes to all 5 locomotives and 2 cars as an extra precaution in case the air brake system failed. However, since the train was on a slope, it was necessary to apply handbrakes to at least twice as many tank cars. Unfortunately, Harding, being the only person on duty, likely skipped this step because applying a single brake required significant strength and took around 3 minutes. Afterward, Harding conducted a brake test to ensure that the train would be held in place solely by the handbrakes. Tragically, he unintentionally left the air brakes engaged during the test, leading him to believe that the handbrakes would effectively secure the train. Despite these circumstances, Harding left the lead engine running to maintain pressure in the air brake system. Even though the air brakes were applied, it was inexplicably evident that the train somehow started moving. 8 months prior to the accident, one of the locomotives had undergone repairs due to an engine failure. On the day of the disaster, this low-quality part failed, causing oil to leak into the turbocharger housing, which ultimately triggered the catastrophe. With the engine left running, the oil accumulation caused the engine to overheat and catch fire. Firefighters acted quickly to contain the fire, but they had to turn off the engine to extinguish it, cutting off the air supply to the air brake system. However, the maintenance employees from MMA who arrived at the scene were not trained operators and didn't realize the consequences of leaving the engine turned off. If operator Harding had been present, he would have restarted the engine. But his colleague assured him that there was no need to come back. After the fire was put out, both the firefighters and MMA employees left, believing the situation was under control. Little did they know a tragic event was about to unfold. Without the engine running, the air brake system gradually lost pressure, and the train, with only handbrakes engaged, started moving down the tracks. The train was carrying over 2 million gallons of oil. Making matters worse, the tracks had a significant downward slope. By the time the train reached a curve, it had gained enough momentum to derail. The Lac-Mégantic rail disaster was the result of poor management systems and inadequate regulations. The Montreal, Maine and Atlantic Railway, MMA, was primarily blamed for failing to ensure the safe operation of the train. Transport Canada, responsible for transportation policies, was also held accountable for not effectively enforcing safety requirements on MMA. MMA, however, shifted the blame onto their employees. Tom Harding, the train operator that night, and Richard Labrie and Jean Demaitre, the railway traffic controller and manager of train operations, respectively. In 2014, all 3 individuals were arrested and charged with criminal negligence, causing the death of 47 people. Harding was accused of not applying enough handbrakes and parking the train on a slope. Labrie was blamed for insufficiently inspecting the train after the fire incident. Demaitre was accused of failing to secure the train properly. During the trial, the defense argued that the accused lacked proper safety training and that their actions followed company regulations. The 3 accused served as scapegoats, while the true responsibility lay with those who prioritize profit over safety. Residents of Lac-Mégantic empathized with the accused and believed that railway managers should have faced charges. The residents had long pleaded with MMA to relocate the tracks and hazardous cargo away from the town, but the railway considered it too expensive. Eventually, all 3 accused individuals were acquitted, much to the relief of their co-workers and the residents. However, MMA and the Canadian Pacific Railway, as the main contractor, evaded accountability. MMA filed for bankruptcy protection in 2013, lacking assets or insurance to compensate the victims. Other companies involved in lawsuits agreed to pay into a settlement fund, resulting in a total payment of $450 million to victims and creditors. In response to the disaster, Canadian and American authorities announced security measures, including new safety standards for cars, speed limits in urban areas, and mandatory electronic braking systems. However, even after a decade, the railway industry resists adopting standards that challenge their economic interests. Meanwhile, Lac-Mégantic was rebuilt, and residents returned to their homes as businesses reopened. The downtown area underwent changes but serves as a constant reminder of the day their peaceful lives were abruptly interrupted.